Boss agrees with secretary that I am not the office manager, so I stop managing the office. When I was doing my articles at a small law firm, internship to be admitted as an attorney, I was the go-to person for everything at the office, setting up computers, buying stationery, paying bills, going to court, seeing clients, etc. After being admitted as an attorney, I continued doing all this because the secretary only did about 20% of what a secretary would usually do and refused to do anything else. My boss does some shady business, don't pay taxes, etc., so he couldn't just fire her for fear of her ratting him out. He also never disciplined her. We are not in the US. Since we worked from my boss's mother's house, the secretary also spent about 50% of her day just chatting to his mother, and they became fast friends. Guess who was always the evil one that everyone ganged up on? Yours truly. I was made out to be incompetent at my job, and I used to cry a lot and almost became an alcoholic from work stress. One day the secretary got really upset with me, after I asked her to buy stationery since we didn't even have staples. And after a heated argument told me that I'm not the office manager and should stop lording it about as if I was. Bear in mind I was her senior both as an attorney and in number of years worked at the firm. My boss did nothing and rather got upset with me, and so did his mother. I decided there and then I am done doing both secretary work and my attorney work because I was working roughly 50 to 60 hours per week, standard is 40, trying to get everything done without receiving overpay. The unemployment rate in my country is around 30%, and in the legal field supply of lawyers exceeds demand. She knew this and my boss knew this, but no one cared that I was basically working myself into an early grave. Cue malicious compliance. If everyone agrees that I am not the office manager, then I will stop managing the flow of the office and only do my attorney work. I stopped paying the bills, buying the stationery, reminding my boss of important meetings, etc. Within 2 weeks the electricity was cut off for 10 days because it wasn't paid, and my boss's elderly mother and the rest of his family had no electricity. We could also not work for those 10 days. Once the electricity went on, the phone lines were cut because of non-payment. We could again not work. The post piled up, there were no stationery. We couldn't do service of court documents because our service providers cut us off. It went on for weeks. I simply worked around the issues and sorted my life out. One example, when the Wi-Fi was off, I used my cell phone to hotspot my laptop without telling anyone. In the end my boss and his mother begged me to do what I used to do, but I refused. Since I was focusing more on my actual work, my fees increased and my pay increased as well. Shortly thereafter I moved away from that office to our secondary office and worked alongside lovely colleagues who all did what they got paid to do. I have been at this new office, same firm just a different location, for the last 2 years. Now to the comments. So many times here I read about someone told to just do your job, they do, and the company finds itself in a hole. Well done you, and more so for finding a way out of that rat hole and into a nicer environment. Or getting in trouble for going above and beyond and above their pay grade. But then told that saying that's not my job when asked to do something not in their job description. Double-edged sword. This happened to me at my last job. I worked at a medical center and a patient of ours needed help with Veterans Affairs paperwork to get their care and medical equipment covered. There was much back and forth between the VA and their insurance, each saying it was the other's responsibility and whatnot, with the poor patient caught in between. I answered phones in the office, but I'm a quick learner and had become sort of the go-to person for everything weird that no one knew how to do. So, I set about helping that patient get their form filled out and sent to the right place. That day, my nosy micromanaging boss came and asked me what I was working on, then scolded me for working outside my job description. Next day, without apology, she asked me to continue working on it. She wouldn't admit it, but had no idea how to do it herself. I'd have refused, but it would be the patient who suffered. Great lesson. Overachieving just enables other people to be bad at / not do their jobs. Draw clear lines and stick to them. Everyone is better off. Very accurate. Unfortunate problem is that at least here my generation was taught by parents hard work equals reward, do the extra and you get more. Yet to run into the company that functions like this, I have to assume that the world my parents grew up in was a drastically different place. I assume you have boomer parents, because I got the exact line of bullshit from my mom and dad. They grew up in the 50s and 60s in small-town rural farming communities. Of course, hard work and dedication are going to be noticed. Except this current world is not the 50s and 60s in a small town. Some shady business, don't pay taxes, etc. We are not in the US. At first, I thought Greece, but no. In Greece people don't consider not paying taxes shady. OP replied, LOL. That's some shade on Greece. It's true though. Their joining the EU basically destroyed the euro because their economy is so bad. We have a security guard that helps mandate masks and social distancing while people are waiting for their food. One day, we had a duck ton of Togo orders and he decided to help bag the food, as nobody was here whatsoever. The boss decided that he isn't allowed to do that, so she yelled at him. Now he refuses to leave his chair like he was told to do, for any reason whatsoever, other than a patrol around the premises every hour. And the boss got upset that he was sitting on his ass. I just can't get past the idea that someone working 50 to 60 hours a week is working themselves into an early grave. Sometimes I am forcefully reminded of how crazy American working life is, when I realize people in other countries don't live like this. OP replied, please explain the two-job thing to me. I cannot get over the fact that Americans sometimes have two jobs, but maybe that's why your country has a 6% unemployment rate and we are sitting at around 30%. I've had 3 jobs before. One gave me about 18 hours a week, 30 at another one, and about 10 at the third. Was still living around the poverty line. By the way, you talked about how your old boss did stuff like not pay his taxes. When you switched, did you end up reporting him? Well done. I am also a lawyer in a country with articling. I was lucky to article with a venerable firm, but even in that experience we had to do ridiculous things. Secretaries loved to use us as lackeys rather than arrange the billing for couriers, etc. A group of us tracked our time spent on secretarial and courier services, and the top brass lost their shit at how much time we were donating to jobs that were not billing legal work. Anyone who knows anything about the legal business knows that lawyers need to spend their time billing. OP replied, yes. Because I literally lost out on a bigger income trying to do it all. They should really teach these things to us. GGWP. I'm surprised you started at the firm for so long. OP replied, remember the 30% unemployment rate and a law degree is totally useless in this country. 2020 has been a nightmare for me. I'm ever grateful I found a new job. It seems all other law firms will pull through except us, and it's due to poor management. This sounds a lot like South Africa to me. Is it? The firm has multiple locations, but one is an employee's mother's house. OP replied, yep. His dad was an attorney before him at the same house. There is an existing client base. Also, lots of firms work from houses in my country. There are normally just no people living there. I ended up in a similar situation a few years ago, and instead of malicious compliance, I quit. Things were a mess, so I created processes to address the problems and made manuals for future staff in the position. I took care of contractors, paid bills, ordered supplies, trained new staff, organized meetings, stayed up to date with privacy and health and safety regulations, and made sure we met those standards. Problems that had persisted for ages were fixed, and I was able to spend about half my day doing projects that we were technically required to do, but which nobody ever did in the past because they were busy bailing out the sinking ship. When a promotion came up for a role managing the office, I wasn't interviewed or considered for the role. I had a meeting with my boss to discuss this, during which he told me that I was never asked to do those things, and when I became upset by this, he told me that was evidence that I was clearly unsuitable for the role and that his decision to bypass me was the correct decision. Looking back, I wish I had taken with me all training, contacts, guides and resource material I had created. After all, it wasn't my job to make it, so it's not company property.